Well, welcome everyone. It's pretty early here, but I'm sure that it's either the evening or afternoon for a lot of you. My name is Marianne, as Josh mentioned. I have,
Ahad says hello, Mariani.
oh, hi. Um, I'm not sure also what screen we're on the presentation, but if we can go to the agenda, I'll just kind of briefly go through what we'll cover today, and then I'll do a brief intro if that's all right.
Yep. So I'm on the agenda. Gabriel says hi. He's from the Dominican Republic. We have Aman's here from India. Just to give a few, and
Super
if
cool.
any different ones pop up, I'll throw them out. But I don't want to ruin the flow.
Sounds good. Well, I'll start by just sharing a little bit about the three skills. I'll tell you more about me and how I ended up in Canada. I'll share some resume tips, just especially because I feel like resume is like the foot in the door. If I see a good resume, then that just goes straight into me wanting to talk to that person. So I think it's really important to cover. Then some tips on LinkedIn in terms of how you can start networking, even if you're not in Canada yet. And then I'll talk a little bit about our course with three skills and what we do. And then I want to make sure that I can answer any questions that anyone has. So don't be shy, send them my way, and we'll leave some time at the end for that.
Yeah, and if anyone does have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and then what we'll do is we'll go back at the end and I'll relay them to Mariani. She can't see them live, so but we will definitely scroll up and get to everyone's questions. To everyone else saying, hey, thanks for tuning in. We have Dominican Republic, Poland, India. I think that's it for now, but I'll keep you posted, Mariani. So are we hopping to the next slide?
Yes.
Awesome.
So there is a picture of me. I was born and raised in Bolivia. I decided to come to Canada for university. So I came when I was 18. I am extremely lucky that before me, I had two older brothers that were already here. So they kind of showed me the way of what to do and what not to do. I attended Carleton University and I studied international business. So I graduated in June 2015 with a concentration in management and human resources. I started my career at the bank. So I worked at one of the big four banks in Canada, Scotiabank. And I started like as a teller at the bottom and then worked my way into a junior financial advisor and then intermediate financial advisor, senior financial advisor. And I kind of felt like it was a great experience. I loved meeting clients, especially when I had clients who had just moved to Canada. I just had a sweet spot for that. I worked a lot with international students, so I really enjoyed my time, but I felt like I wanted to get into tech. I wanted to get into that world, and I did it through a role in sales. So in sales, I was challenged just because I had never done anything like that. I had never kind of prospected and had these relationships that were basically through Google Hangouts or through Zoom and never meeting them, and just turning into like a strategic mind and getting those relationships built, but also showing the value of our product. And then I did that for 11 months, but I always in the back of my mind wanted to get into human resources. So when I was actually going through the Shopify website looking for jobs for our students at Three Skills. And Three Skills has something that we started a year ago while I was working at that tech company in sales. And it was a way that I was able to look for companies that were hiring specifically international students and make those introductions. So when I received a resume of a student that was aligned with what the company was looking for, then I would directly send them. So they would skip the part of like hitting apply or submitting a resume because I was directly sending it to the recruiter. So when I was scrolling on the Shopify website, I see recruiter and I was like, well, this is me. Like I should be applying to this. So I did that. I applied. I got a referral from someone in the company already, which is something that I always recommend you doing. And that's how kind of my experience and my role as a recruiter started. Something that I'm really passionate about is just building community. It's something that I have always sort of done. I had a point where I was teaching Spanish just because I felt like it was something that I had and that's something that I always heard people say like, oh, I really want to learn Spanish. So I was like, okay, let me try to cater to that group. And then with Three Skills, again, it's more of that community. I'm always hosting webinars, organizing them, and trying to make introductions between our students and people outside of in my own network, just to make those connections. So that's a little bit about me. I saw someone from, I heard that someone's from the Dominican Republic. So, hey, if you ever need help, let me know. I always want to help people, especially those who are trying to get to Canada or already in Canada and need a little bit of guidance. So Let's get started with the first step, which I said was the resume. So I'm calling this Resume 101 because I really believe that it's the basic. I've seen a lot of shift of, before it was like that black and white Word document resume. And I've seen a shift lately in the resumes that I've been receiving, that they are getting more creative in the layout. So they're more colorful, they're more, have a picture, like they're more, I would say, like reflective of a personality. But something that I'm seeing lacking is that I think the amount of time spent in making it look pretty is jeopardizing the content of some resumes. So I would say first thing is just tailor your resume every single time. If you are using the same resume to apply to, let's say, a customer service role, a marketing role, and a finance role, then it's not going to hit the spot with the recruiter. It's very easy to spot a resume that has not been tailored. And I don't mean tailor by saying I'm looking for a position in and you fill in the blank with the role. That's not tailoring it enough. So make sure that when you look at the job description, match it to what you want to show on your resume. And I'm not saying this to put information that's not true. It's just the wording of it sometimes can be more like, okay, yes, exactly. That's what we're looking for. So tailor it before you hit submit or before you apply. I do have some software recommendations for if you want to make it look pretty, but you don't want to spend a lot of time. So Novo Resume is a really good one.
How do you spell that, Marianne? I'll find the link and I'll post it.
Yeah, Novo, Novo Resume.
Okay, awesome.
And Kick Resume.
Kick.
Those are really good, and they're already done. Like, you don't have to move any lines or switch things around. Like, it's a set format and you just plug in your information and go. I added the next point as too much information. A lot of resumes that I get say your full name, your date of birth, your nationality, and that's what I consider too much information. What I need as a recruiter is your name, your email, and your LinkedIn. And your phone number, of course. That's all that I need, because I want to know, how can I contact you? Sometimes when we put this information showing that you were born, like if I put that I was born in Bolivia, because I'm not yet Canadian, I'll be soon, but then it's too much information, and it kind of shows you that this person is not too familiar with how to apply for a job in Canada. And that's what you want to avoid. You want to feel like you belong, and this is what you've been doing all along. Like, you've been applying to jobs in Canada since forever, and that's going to make me think that you're even in Canada. And then I put the next point saying, does order matter? And I'd say yes. On average, a recruiter spends 6 seconds on your resume. So I want what's most relevant at the forefront. That's why I'm reading through, and like, you'd be surprised, but a lot of people go like way into like their marriage status, like everything at the first thing that I'm seeing. I'm like, okay, where can I get to like the meat? Where can I see if this person can do the job? So I always suggest start with experience first, and bullet points will make a big difference, because no one wants to read long sentences. It's the same thing as when now we spend so much time on our phones that we're just like tapping away. Our like attention span is so short that I want to see exactly what I'm interested in, what I'm looking for in this role. So that's kind of like resume 101. I've been guilty of a lot of these things, so don't feel bad. It's a learning process, and applying jobs in each country is very different. Something that I wanted to bring to your attention is what we call ATS, or Application Tracking System. And this kind of goes in line with why it's so important to tailor your resume every time. When a company chooses to use the application tracking system, it kind of skims through your resume, and then it compares it to, say, like 20 phrases that the recruiter has chosen that are must-haves or that are really important in the role. So if the software scans through your resume and does not find any of these words, or finds like too little matches, then you will not get picked up. And that's something that if you go through the job description and select 10 to 15 words that you think are really important and that you have, then it honestly will take you, let's say, maximum 3 minutes to put those words into your resume. And the tracking system, the software will automatically pick you up. So by not tailoring it, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, because you're automatically saying that you're not qualified for this role, which I'm sure that a lot of you are. So yeah, the next point goes into like optimize your resume by matching the job description. And even more, to go into like a step further, is I've listed here Talio, Bamboo HR, Workday, Lever, Greenhouse, Jazz HR, Success Factor. Those are ATS, those are the software. So if you ever go into a company's website and see any of these, then you know that they're using this software. So stop right there. If you haven't done the tailoring, go back and like fix up a couple of words and make sure that you do that before you hit apply. You don't want to just disqualify yourself.
So Marianne, just to clarify, if we see that, it means that these softwares are basically keyword searching resumes as like step one.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes like some companies can use this software in lieu of like the first eyes of a recruiter. So automatically, if there was 100 and let's say 80 didn't make the cut because of the software, then the recruiter only has to look over 20. That is to say, Shopify, for example, does not use this. At Shopify, every single recruiter goes through every single resume, but we use Lever, for example. So it can be, companies can choose how to use it, but we at Shopify, we really want to take the time to look through everything, just as a side point there. That kind of leads into the second point of a cover letter. Before being a recruiter, I always thought that a cover letter was a nice touch, something good to add. But now, as I'm like in the shoes of a recruiter and seeing this, I actually really enjoy reading cover letters. And I think it's a part that a resume is a little bit more dry. It's more like, I was able to do this by doing that, and I achieved this. Like it's pretty structured these days, so it doesn't really allow me to see the person's personality. When if I can read the cover letter, then I can be like, okay, this is an actual human who's talking to me as if I'm another human, and we're using simple language. And that's something that I would recommend for roles in tech is we don't need like and therefore or however. Like we need simple language. I want to know that you are a person on the other side and not just like typing what you think I want to read. I want to read and get to know you better as a person. So always add a cover letter when possible. I know that it's daunting and sometimes like, what can I even say? So if you can answer these 3 questions, you have a great cover letter. It's why am I interested in this role? Why am I interested in this company? And why am I the right person for this role? We have this line that we say at Shopify that it's right person, right role at the right time. So if those 3 things align, then like this is a successful candidate. If we see that, yes, they're interested in the company, but they're not interested in the role, they're seeing it as like a foot in the door, then it's not those 3 things are not aligning. And if it's the right company and the right role, but the timing is off, then, and that can be by a lot of different things, right? If I've had this happen a lot where people from abroad are applying to to roles with Shopify. And once we get like really into like selecting the successful candidate, they back off. It's like they're not actually ready to move when we've been through like at least like 4 hours of conversations, and it's like, okay, this is disappointing because we thought you were the successful candidate, but then clearly it's not the right time. So when those three things align, then you're golden. So focus on those three questions when writing a cover letter. And even if you want to like, first paragraph is why I'm interested in this role, then this company, and then why am I the right person? And I feel like when I'm reading cover letters from people that are not in Canada or that are not really familiar with the culture here, they tend to shy away from their own accomplishments. And I feel like that really backfires because I want to know about you and your accomplishments and what you've done, because I want to make sure that you can bring those skills and also do that at Shopify. So don't be afraid to talk about yourself and the things that you've been able to do, because reading this cover letter is already like more time being spent on your application by a recruiter. So
right.
If you've done things that are like outstanding or that are unique, we want to know about that. So make sure to add that.
Right. And Marianne, what would, because obviously, you know, they're pretty straightforward questions, but it'll definitely take time to kind of think of and prepare proper answers. And obviously you want to make sure your spelling and grammar is pretty good. What's the right balance between like keeping some of it pre-written, but obviously you have to adapt each answer a little bit, right, based on the company and the role and stuff like that? Like, how long should this be? Should it be one paragraph each per answer? And like, how in detail should people go?
Yeah, so I would say one paragraph is good. So if you have a total of 3, that's basically a page. And then I would go more in detail on the role. I feel like that's more value because then I know that you're the right person for this role. And then when you're interested in this company, let's take Shopify, for example. Everyone says, I've heard good things about Shopify. Everyone says it's a great place to work. So those things are not things that are going to make you stand out. But if you can relate to what Shopify does, let's say for merchants or for entrepreneurs, and why that interests you so much, then that's a way more powerful statement to make than to say, I just know that it's one of the fastest tech companies in Canada. You know, like those are like more facts. We want more of like the relation between your interest. Right. And then lastly, the right person for this role, I think that if anything, that's really where you should go into detail, because maybe some roles need specific like software experience, or they need you to be able to code in a certain language. Like those are the things that you should really elaborate on and get into like very detailed experience. And also always kind of making the connection back to the job description. If you see a must-have and you have that experience as a must-have, then go into detail with that, because that's probably what's going to set you apart from other folks who maybe have had some experience but not really in depth as you have.
Right.
And then the last point, which I think should be in the resume and in the cover letter, is like just show your personality and genuine interest. Use simple words, like no need to be super fancy, just get your point across, because that's also something that if we see a super long sentence and you're kind of like rambling on, then that can show us that communication might not be a really strong skill. But if you can have like a very concise sentence that has exactly what you want to say and like a really nice, like written in a really nice way, then that's like, whoa, this person has great communication skills. And that's, again, something else in your favor that's like, okay, I really want to talk to this person now. So I know that it's, like I said, it's daunting because it's going to take some time. But honestly, if you have like, let's say 10 of these like really strong resumes and cover letters, it's going to go way farther than if you have just 100 with a already written cover letter and with a basic resume. You're going to see the difference in the amount of interviews you're going to receive and the amount of just email communication that will go back and forth, instead of a generic, we've decided to move forward with other candidates, for example. I think something super important to mention too is networking. Even if you're not in Canada, that's something that you can start doing. A way that I started was because I had studied something broad like international business. I was like, okay, what does that mean? What can I really do? I really broke it down into like, okay, what industry do I want to be in? And I had like tech, human resources, or if you're an engineer, you can put like engineer, construction, like whatever it is that industry that you want to be in. Put like five, I would say, like don't put more than that. And going to like from those industries, narrow it down to companies you want to work at. So if you want to have like you're in finance, you want to have like be in corporate banking, then you can write like RBC. If you want to be in tech and you're a developer, like Shopify or Slack. If you want like more of the consultants like vibe, you can go with Deloitte or just other companies and narrow it down to these companies that you want to work in, and like actually have a reason why you want to work in them. Like not just because like, oh, I heard it's a great environment, I heard they have a great culture and they get free lunch. Like that's not important enough. It really has to be because either the mission aligns with what you want to do, or because like you just know that your dream job title is at that company, and then that's something that you want to write down. And then
No,
from those
Marianne,
companies,
I've been to
yeah,
lunch at Shopify a few times in downtown Toronto. It's a damn good lunch.
it is for sure.
Yeah.
Let's just not make all of our decisions based on good food, I would say.
I agree, but it's very good food.
It is a really nice perk to have for sure. And then when you go to like narrowing it down to someone you admire, look for people either like CEOs, entrepreneurs, a VP or a manager of a specific department that you're interested in, and start working that list. Like when I was like desperate to change industries from banking to human resources or to tech, I was like reaching out to 5 to 10 people a week and being like, hey, this is me, this is what I do, this is why I want to be like in the industry that you're in. I've been following your work. And it was just that genuine interest of like, hey, like I need some help and I really like what you're doing. And I feel like especially in Canada, people are more open to having these conversations and to helping others. I have so many people now reach out to me, which is like crazy because just like a year ago, I was reaching out to so many people, and I would reach out to like, I would go high. I would go like CEOs of tech companies. I would go CEOs of this staffing agency in Ottawa, and they replied like for like the CEO in a tech company in Toronto. He's like, you should work here, and he set up an interview with the recruiter, and then I got to like the final stages of the interview process, and like that came out of a LinkedIn message. So there is so much power in reaching out to someone, especially if you are genuine and like you know the projects that they've been working on, you see where you can help, or you can at least make it clear where the relation is between what you can bring to the table and what they're doing. So don't be afraid. Like I know it's like sometimes intimidating to reach out to someone who might not ever respond, but the worst thing that can happen is that you don't hear back, and that's the same outcome as if you had never reached out. You would never hear back. So I would really like push you to do that, like reach out to someone on LinkedIn, especially if like if you are, and I know there's like a amount of people who know exactly what they want to do when they come to Canada, then those are the people who will have like these industries, companies, and someone you admire like already in the back of their mind. So just putting it into an actionable plan of, I'm going to reach out to 5 people this week, and I'm going to reach out to, let's say, 2 people next week because I'm just busier with work or whatever. I feel like having those small goals just keeps you more accountable to what you can do, and also you'll see better results. So I challenge you to do that. You can also reach out to a recruiter. Like that works, because why would we spend like hours going through resumes if we already have a message from you and it's clear why you would do a good job at this role? So get out of your comfort zone and reach out to people. A lot of the times you'd be surprised how people are willing to help. I also added a kind of how can I say, like, if you are not sure what to say, and this is like the most common objection I get from our students, like, what would I ever say to a random person I've never met? So I have like how to craft a LinkedIn message here. So if you want to reach out to someone you admire, if you've been following them and you've seen like the work that they've been doing, mention those recent projects. Something that I feel like as a recruiter has become more evident is that people love talking about themselves. Like, it's really true. Like, if you are admiring their work, like, you're done. Like, you're set. They are going to talk, and you're just going to get so much of that insider's information of the company and other projects that they may have coming out in the pipeline. Be specific about what it is that you liked. Did you like that new team member that they brought on this project? Or did you like the technology that they're using to power this project? Like, what is it that you liked about this project, or the outcome, for example? Do you see like, okay, this is a really cool project because I can see how it can impact so-and-so. Like for Shopify, for example, is like being able to kind of pivot so quickly to now small businesses being able to do a local pickup. So that's something that you can be like, whoa, that's really cool, because I can see how many companies before it didn't even have a website, but now you've enabled them to do a curbside pickup. That was not something that we could do before. So like, be really specific about what it was that you liked, and don't say, oh yeah, it was a great project and I can see that it took you 6 months to work. That must have been like a lot of work. And it's like, yeah, no kidding. You know, like, you have to get super specific, because that's how you can see who are the people who are intentional about messaging and who are just like sending out LinkedIn messages left, right, and center, hoping that one person will bite. Mm-hmm. And then pro tip is, if you can like take that project or something that you've been following along that you liked and you can relate that to your own experience, then why would, and this is like a true statistic, is that 60% of the jobs that people get hired for are not posted online. It's people going through their networks, hiring managers going to like, okay, who do I know? Who have I talked that could really fit this role? And we don't post it. And I can tell you, there are so many roles that I do not post on Shopify because we already have a good pipeline of people, and because I already have a network of people reaching out that I'm like, oh, you would be so good for this role. And that's where you want to like kind of go in through the back door of like, hey, remember me? Like we chatted and like we talked about my experience and about how you got into this role, and it kind of like, it just makes sense that they would reach out to you when they have an opportunity. Something to say is that it can be so easy to mention like, hey, I really want to come to Canada and I saw this role and I would really like to work there, but it's not the right time, especially if it's like your first communication with this person. It's just like rubs people the wrong way if you're like, you don't even know anything about them, but you already want something. It's like a relationship, or like even dating. Like at the first date, you're not gonna ask them to marry you. Like it's not gonna happen. It doesn't happen that way. It's like you have to build that relationship. You know, you have to like their posts and comment on them, and then send them a quick message like, hey, that was super cool. Like I'd love to learn more about what happened behind the scenes. Or, hey, I really like this. Is there anyone on your team who I can chat with to learn more about how this came to be? And that's kind of like the ultimate goal, is when you have a conversation with someone that you admire, ask them for like, hey, who are like 2 other people that immediately come to mind based on what you've heard about my experience and kind of my interest that I should really meet. So if you can get 2 names from that one person, and then you automatically have a pipeline of more and more people to meet in Canada. So I would say those are really important things to do. And just going back to that initial LinkedIn message is always have an ask. Like, don't just reach out and say, I love what you're doing and I think it's great, and leave it at that. Like, you want to be like, would you have 15 minutes for us to chat? And maybe don't do that in like the very first message. Wait until they reply. but always have an ask. Like don't just mention what you like and just don't ask for their time. Like the reason why you're reaching out is probably because you want to talk more to this person. So don't let that opportunity slip, and don't feel like you're burdening them. Like you're not asking for an hour chat. Like start like with a 15-minute chat. Like who doesn't have 15 minutes to talk to someone that's interested in them, their company, their projects? Like it doesn't happen that often where like all those three things are like stated in a message that you're like, okay, you know what? Like, yeah, I'd love to chat with you.
Right,
That's
and
kind of like,
asking a question actually, it's more natural to even start the conversation, right? If you just send a message, like you said, with nothing to it, it's very easy for them to read it and just not respond because there's no
yeah,
question to answer. So it's almost naturally getting that conversation flowing too.
yeah. There's actually a lot of psychology behind that. And you'll see like in sales, you always end an email with a question because it kind of makes the person feel like you're expecting an answer, and you don't want to leave someone hanging who is waiting for something from you.
Hmm.
So if you can end your LinkedIn message with a question, like your chances of hearing a response will be even significantly higher. So I hope this helps in terms of if you're not sure where to start with networking, especially if you're not in Canada. I do want to mention our course. So if you're really like stuck and you don't know kind of what job looking for a job looks in Canada, we actually started this job hunting essentials. We opened our first cohort on May 1st. We were doing online and in-person boot camps, but since COVID, we had to pivot and do it fully online. So what we'll be covering is the basics, but getting like real like live feedback. If we have a resume webinar, then I'm going to ask you to do homework and then you're going to send it back to me and I'm going to take a look at it. And there's a lot of value in like a recruiter looking at your resume and telling you this
Oh
looks
yeah.
good, take that off, and like that live feedback. And then we do practice for interviews. And I think that's like where I see the biggest change of like befores and afters, because then our students get the confidence of like being able to communicate their value and not shy away from details or not shy away from their accomplishments. And again, it's like you get feedback right on the spot. Like we do these role play sessions that I ask a question and you respond as if you were interviewing, and then the entire like cohort will give feedback on that too, which I think is great. It's better to make mistakes in front of um like other peers and us who are there to help you than to just not do well at an interview.
Hmm.
And then lastly, you do have access to our community. We have a Slack group that we are always chatting on. If we see job opportunities, we'll post them there. And then we will also be going over homework assignments and submit that feedback, like I mentioned. And then we do regular webinars and Q&A sessions, just so that you feel supported every step of the way. You'll find it on our website if you go to the3skills.com. And I really want to just leave some time for any questions that anyone may have. We are always just communicating through our Instagram page at the3skills, and we post if we have webinars coming up, if we have anything of value that we can send to you, like how to work on your resume or what to do now during COVID-19. That like our place where everything lives is our Instagram, so feel free to follow us. And if you have any questions, I've also put my LinkedIn handle and also my email address. I'm curious to see if there's any questions.
Awesome. Yeah, we do have a couple questions backed up, and if anybody does have questions, definitely throw them in the chat so we can get to them. Marianne, that was awesome. I definitely agree, especially on the networking part. So even in the Visto portal, we have a page on how to find a job. We have a separate page with some networking tips, some of which overlap with the ones you talked about, because like you said, so many jobs are not even posted. And more importantly than, I honestly think more importantly than, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts, more importantly than having a good resume and cover letter and sending them out would be networking with the right people at the right companies, because you may not even have to go through a formal recruitment process. Now,
Yeah.
coming from outside of the country, it can, obviously be very tough, but would you agree with that sentiment?
Totally. I have been in Canada when I've been applying to jobs, but my I've had like my job at Scotiabank was through a referral. So someone sent me to, I did not apply through the website. My job at Kivuto was through a referral. I did not apply through the website. And then my job at Shopify was a referral, and they are automatically sending my resume to the recruiter. So
Right.
I'm not submitting it on or hitting apply. And I think especially for if you're not in Canada,
Hmm.
then networking is probably the cheapest thing you can do because it's like over Zoom or over LinkedIn. Doesn't mean that you have to come to the country and have these chats, especially during COVID-19 where everyone lives on Zoom. I feel like
Hmm.
it's a great opportunity to do that. And
Awesome.
with tech companies, they're focused on finding the right talent. So it doesn't matter if you're outside of the country for most, if you have the right skill sets and if you show this hustle in you that you're just reaching out to people and like trying to learn more and you're eager to hear from others, then that's what tech companies are looking for. They're looking for people who want to learn, and you reaching out to someone out of the blue and getting on their radar is a way to do it.
Awesome.